Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Well, it's the same old stuff we do.
I forgot this one. You have to say good morning again. I forgot this one. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
Same old spiel again, over and over, pointing to the one thing. Because when you look at it and understand it, that is all there is. The one essence, patterning, shaping, forming and expressing and experiencing as everything. And all its diversity is still only the oneness. Some people call it God.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Heyman saying good morning. I'll stop the heater because it's too loud. Some people call it God.
yeah. Some all different labels for it, but it all means it's only the one. Way back, the Hebrews said 1,000 years ago, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God. There is nothing other." The Muslims say there is no God but God. Allah is his name.
Richard says good morning from God.
Who?
Richard.
Did he?
Yes.
Thank you, God. And that is true. It expresses patterns and shapes through everything. There is only that. But that word, when we call it God, we've taken on something greater or higher or more than what you or I or anything else is. But when we take on the personal aspect, but there is no person if it's only that. And that's where our problems come in. We've taken on the belief that we are separate entities, individuals or persons. And we suffer accordingly because of that. But again, still in Isaiah, be still and know that I am is God. And that is true. That sense of presence, which you know that you are, which you translate as I am, that is the one essence. But we've taken it on the personal aspect of it. So the person doesn't exist. There's no such thing. It's only a pattern, shape and form. And that the essence of that pattern, shape and form is existence, consciousness and loving to be, Sat Chit Ananda. And then the pattern, shape and form, the Nama Rupa, they say is Maya, illusion, appearance, phenomenal manifestation. The definition of phenomenon is that which appears to be. So have a look around you. What are you seeing? You're seeing all these things. Everything you see in all its diversity. Now, a thing is not the reality, because it's all no thing appearing as things. And the screen in which it appears on is that emptiness or silence or stillness or space. They're labels we put on it and words on it. But can you postulate or think of anything that would be outside of space? As I say, anything that can be outside of space. So you see, it's all things which we put labels, names and forms on. That's the tree, that's the flower, that's the sky. That's all things appearing on that no thing, the emptiness, the cognising emptiness. Can something come from no thing? It can't. But that's what we say. We say we've taken on the idea that it's no thing, no, meaning we think it's a vacuum or a void. But that no thing is the absolute, the totality, patterning, shaping, forming into things which we put labels or words on. Everything we've got a different label on. The insects, the birds, the flowers, people, you, me, are all things which we put labels or words on and differentiate them. Now they tell you in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. That's when it all seemingly begins, with the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all that God is the Word. A label we put on some of these things we start off with. That's everything is now a seemingly separate thing, but it's all the one. All things were made by Him, by the Word. In other words, without putting the label on it, see, the word God is just a word. The word you, person, or me, or I, are all words, all things which we put the word on, the label on, and all things were made by Him. There was nothing made that was made. So, you see, it all comes about, begins with the word. Now, how many words were you born with? Go back as far as you can remember, and you realise you can't remember anything at all until you're about two, somewhere around that, when you started to learn words. But you were living for the first couple of years of your life before you learnt any words. So, that you didn't know anything about the beginning until the words came upon you. So, that's what the problem with the so-called humans. Words can be very useful, but they're also very self-destructive, because when we tell ourselves I'm not good enough, or I'm fearful, or I'm anxious, or I'm unhappy, or depressed, and the worst one we put upon ourselves, after all, I'm only human. Oh. We call ourselves human beings. And if you believe in this God, you call God the Supreme Being. Well, what happens if you take that label off Supreme, take the label human off, you're left with the beingness. Try and separate yourself from the beingness without the label. And there is only pure being out there. And that's that shit and Andrew again. Being, knowing, and loving to be. It's that being that's knowing, it's that being that's loving to be. The being is not becoming. It's not some future time or future thing. Being is happening right now in this instant. Can you negate that beingness right now? We believe we are the separate as individuals. Well, stop being if you can. So you are the beingness, the knowingness, and the loving to be. And another way of putting that, Satchit and Andrew, is awareness of being is the bliss of being, just having an awareness of being. And Nisargadatta puts it another way, and he says, have an affectionate awareness of being. So instead of be that affection, you are the affection. Let that natural affection that you are, the loving to be, express through you. Not going to leave any room to be unhappy or depressed then, if it's expressing through you continually. And it's the beingness when it is expressing through you, Doesn't your face light up when there's affection, that warmth is there? Your eyes shine and people see the joyousness that's flowing through that beingness. Just the fact of being, loving to be. And that's when another thing that Nisargadatta says. When you are that beingness, when you are that loving to be, people will come to your door. People will recognise that life essence that's in you and want some of it. Want to know what you've got, want what you have and what you've got, and come and listen to you. And there will be others that won't. They've got their vested interest in something else and and but none of you would be dead for quids right now, would you? So that means you must love to be. But then, what do? We take the word, or the label, and say, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm unhappy, or I'm fearful, or I've got this pain, or this ache, or this guilt. Put the words on ourselves, discriminate it, get locked up into the word, lost in the word. The word is not the thing. It's not the real. The word's not real. Have a look and see, investigate. The false cannot stand up investigation. I'm using these words to point to it. But the word is not the thing. The false cannot stand up to investigation. When you investigate and see that the word is not the thing, you're going to believe it again. It's useful for communicating. It's useful for working things out. But when it's telling you that you're not good enough, something, and it's causing you to be depressed or anxious or unhappy, fearful, it becomes self-destructive. So investigate these things and see for yourself. And have a look and see. If you ask yourself, what's wrong with right now if I don't think about it, what can you say is wrong? Without a thought. What can you say is right? What can you say is better? Or what can you say is worse? Without the word. But you can't say, it is not. So what must it be? It must be just as it is. And what is what is? What is unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected, just as it's appearing or expressing right here, right now, in this immediacy, it as it is. And isness is not what was, and it's not what will be. It's right in this presence. We call presence, pre-sense, right in this immediacy, this timelessness, this spontaneity. Everything is appearing spontaneously, naturally and effortlessly. So you start to look at that and recognise that time is a mental concept also. If there's nothing wrong with right now, if I don't think about it, is there a past if I don't think about it? Can you say there's a past or a future without a thought? But then I'll say, oh, I was in the past. Well, test it out. Try and live yesterday. Try and live last week. Or a moment ago even. You can't go back and live it, but you can recall it. A lot of things you can't recall, they're gone forever, but some things you can recall. And when you're recalling them, right in this moment, you can't go back and live anything. You can recall it. If you're not recalling it in this moment, what you thought a minute ago is gone. And won't be there unless you can recall it. The same with the future. You can anticipate and imagine. what you're going to live in the next 5 minutes or the next hour or so, or what you'd like to do and what you're not going to do, or next week. But you can't live it. And so you see, when people tell you you've got to try and stay in the now, I'll say try and get out of it. Because it's always this what we call immediacy. It's always this immediate now. And you can't move away with it. You can anticipate and imagine it or recall it, but you can't actually live it again. So it's always this immediacy. And if you haven't got all these concepts we've added onto ourselves, I'm Bob, the Australian, and having a rough trot or bad things are going to happen to me tomorrow or next week or have happened to me last week. None of that's there. Where am I? I'm present and aware. And in that presence and aware, without the concepts, there's a spontaneous, natural joyousness about it. A feeling of well-being, being well. Nothing wrong anymore. Nisargadatta puts it that way. He says, I can only put it negatively. There is nothing wrong anymore. So if there's nothing wrong, there can't be anything right either. It's just as it is. And as is life. And you are the life. That's what Christ told you. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. Not talking about himself. He understood and talking about that sense of presence as the way. That's the truth. That's the life. And you can say it just as much as he or anybody else can say it. Because that's what you need to recognise, though, that you are the life itself. You're not the person. The person is not the reality. It comes from persona, an ancient language, the mask. It means we've got a mask of concepts, concepts of thoughts. I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fellow. Oh, they're all thoughts. I'm not so good, or I'm unhappy, or I'm fearful, I'm moving a bad trot, people don't like me. All thoughts, a concept. That's the mask I'm wearing of persona. And that's where all my psychological problems and troubles come about from, relating to a dead image. That mask is dead. As I told you before, it's based on past events, experiences and conditioning. It's not, can the past keep up with life? It can't. As I say, take a bucket of water out of the river, put it on the bank, what happens to it? It becomes stagnant and dead. What's happened to the river? The river's flowing merrily along. It might be going through even flat, even plain parts where it's hardly moving, but it's still moving. Or it might be going through sandy banks and forests, down rapids, or wherever. But it's always flowing happily and merrily along. And it merges back into where it arose from, the ocean. The sun, the radiance of the sun heated the water and evaporated and took it up in the sky, and it came down as rain. But when was it never? What's happened to the bucket of water on the bank? It's still dead. Because it's, it's encased in that bucket, like we've encased ourselves in the cage of concepts, thoughts, words, ideas, images. So we're relating constantly to this dead image which can't keep up with life because it's already disappeared. So to get back to the being with the life itself, you need to be that spontaneous, immediate essence. What's happening there? What's happening where you are? The breathing's happening. Did you take a breath then?
It's been taken.
You'll say, I took that breath. But didn't you? Did the I, the conceptual image, the thought take it? Or did the breath just happen spontaneously and naturally? Your heart's beating. Did you say, I've got to expand and contract the heart? No. It's happening. Hair and fingernails are growing. Food's being digested. All sorts of things are happening in that body. But is the persona, the mask, doing any of it? No. It's just a spontaneous, natural functioning. All happening in the immediacy, in the presence. Not happening yesterday or tomorrow. Mm. So patterns continually forming, patterns playing around and breaking down. Mm. But nothing is ever gained, nothing is ever lost. The patterns come and shape. They're the shapes and forms. But the life essence is always and ever there. Mm. So you are the life. Can life know death? It can't. And that's another thing that Nisargadatta tells you. He says life lives on life. There is only life. There is nobody, no person, nobody who lives a life. And life continually lives on life. For out of life, more life comes. It can't know death. Mm. And when that life essence goes out of this body, what have you got? A corpse. Now, we believe we are this body, mind, this entity, but the life essence goes out of it, it's a corpse. Mm. Now, that corpse has still got heart in it. It hasn't, before it rots, it's got heart, lungs, eyes, ears, nose, mouth, organs, kidneys, all these organs are there. But what good are they without the life? So, without the life, they're not a bit of good. Like your computer's got all that information in it. Take the power out of it. What can you get on the computer? You can tap those keys as much as you like, run that mouse over it, but you'll get nothing out of it whatsoever. Because it's no good without the power. Mm. Just the same as this body mind is no good without the power. So what must you be? Your common sense would tell you. You must be the power, not the pattern, shape and form it's expressing through. And that pattern, shape and form it's expressing through is made by that same essence to express through. If it didn't have something to express through, what would it? It'd be the empty space still. Mm. But pattern, shapes and forms appear in space. And the life or the animation, whatever you like to call it, expresses through it the pure intelligence energy. I use the term intelligence energy. I don't use the term God because you can get confused with that term. Because they've got to shape and form what they believe God to be. And they said, so it tells you again in the scriptures, God made man in his image and likeness. So when we got this idea of God, we got to think of a God in a big daddy in the sky, some pattern, shape and form. But we got it wrong. Mm-hmm. God made man in his image and likeness. We're trying to make God in our image and likeness. But it's not so. God is that pure intelligence energy that expressing through me or you as this life is, or as the bird, the animal, the tree, the flower, and everything. Mm. I use the term intelligence energy rather than use intelligence energy. I don't mean your intellect. I say look out there in nature, because what we point to is the natural state. Why do they get the natural state? Because as it is in nature. In nature. In nature, you have a look out there, and you'll see there's galaxies forming, there's planets imploding, exploding, and changing, stars, all sorts of things happening in nature. Doesn't that imply that nature itself is suffused with an innate intelligence? Suffusing every particle. There's not somebody outside running the show. Mm. And the same intelligence, energy, patterning, shaping, expressing as everything. And you are that intelligence energy. Energy is an activity. And intelligence is a knowing of that activity. Everybody is knowing right now. That's intelligence. So that's the intelligence, the activity of knowing. And that is what you are. And pattern shapes and forms, and that all those pattern shapes and forms we put labels on and label them. And all the intelligence that's there, that's functioning through you and expressing through you, living you, and it's the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming and expressing as everything. It's not two. Couldn't possibly be two. They call it the absolute, the activity of knowing. And isn't that going on in you right now? You're knowing, aren't you? You can't say, I'm not knowing. I don't. You can say it, but you know it's not the fact. So the knowing is an activity that's going on in you right now. And it's a vibration, a movement, a subtle vibration, a subtle patterning. The activity of knowing. And that's happening all the time. And you are that.
I've got a comment from Heyman. Main difference between non-dual God and religious God is that non-dual God created humans, but religious God is created by humans.
Very good. Yeah.
But ultimately, even the non-dual, even the religious God created by humans is ultimately the expression of the non-duality, because everything is.
Yeah. So, it needs to be investigated to see for yourself and understand this, that nobody can ever do it for you, because every seeming body, mind, pattern in this manifestation is just an expression of that intelligence energy. So how can one pattern, shape and form tell another pattern, shape and form what to do? But the body can be utilised to express words through, and then it needs to be recognised by whoever is the hearing of it, if they're that way, if they're moved that way inclined to look for it, to investigate, to want to find out. And that's what happens. Something moves you to look. Something takes you to make and look into this thing. I had no idea of it at all. And was into a self-destructive mode. Thought I was running the show and living life and destroying myself. And didn't believe in any power greater than myself, which we call a power greater than ourselves, but it's the power that forms that self. It is the power that is that self, not that's greater than the self. It forms the self. It's the one, not the personal self. It's a different power from that. But I didn't believe it, didn't want to believe in it, but the destruction was going on here, and something moved this pattern, shape and form to look a little bit further through that self-destructive pattern that was going on. And it turned this pattern around. As it says in the Amazing Grace, was once was lost and now I'm found. What was found? Found that I wasn't what I believed myself to be and recognised the true nature. Was blind, but now I see. The seeing was there, but it wasn't the correct seeing, while it was taken to believe that there was a personal seeing there. And it took me into looking into many different things. And it kept taking me until there was a recognising or a seeing through the beliefs, and a recognising. As the Buddha calls it, a cognising emptiness. Not that we are cognising the emptiness, but the emptiness itself has that capacity of cognising or knowing. It's a knowing emptiness. And he made the statement there and then that emptiness is form. It is that cognising emptiness that's forming these patterns, shapes, you, me and everything else, to express through, to recognise itself. Once it's in the pattern, shape and form and taking belief that it is the pattern, shape, there is no recognition. There is a lost. You're lost in it, in the belief. And you're trying to fix it ourselves. We're personally trying. We think we can do things about it. So we go in all sorts of things. And it needs to, whatever needs to happen will happen. And it happens if there is an opening to it. While I believed that I was running the show, there was no chance in the world. And it was going on and on towards the self-destructive pattern. But it turned me around and got me to look along different lines.
I got a good question. I mean, there is a comment from Heyman. First, the activity of knowing is the only continuous element in our experience.
Yes.
Yes, I would even add that, and I know, Heyman, you know that, it's just for the sake of precision, it's not even an element, it's a base. The cognising emptiness is the base, it's not the element in experience. But I know this is what you meant, I know it's hard to speak in words. And there was one more question. How would intelligent life create death? Would intelligent life create death? What for?
Well, it doesn't. There is no such thing as death. There is only life. Life lives on life, and out of life more patterns come.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea, I'm just going to add, because it's a good analogy that Bob sometimes uses, the darkness and the light. The idea that the light created the darkness hasn't been created. There is no darkness. This is just an absence of life. So again, of light. So death is not, it doesn't exist. Nobody can find the death. Even in a corpse, there is a lot of life. The bacteria, the maggots, all the decomposition is the activity of life. So there is an illusion of death, but there is no death to be found.
Very good.
And also, I think it is quite well described and known by science that the energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. And this is of course not to diminish the drama and the tragedy of someone who lost the dear one or a child or all that human aspect of it, in which death is so real and is so near and it can be feared, because this is part of the play. And it, for the individual, from the perspective of the short span of life, yes, it feels very, very real. Objectively, from the perspective of the reality or totality or the cognizing emptiness, it's just a dance of forms. Wave doesn't die when it joins with the ocean. It just changes forms. But this is not to deny the existence of the immediate experience when it happens. It is to be totally embraced as it is, and when whatever comes with it, the sensations that come with it, the stories that come with it, they are just part of that magnificent expression, and they are totally to be honored.
Yeah. Take this Earth as we know it right now. If this planet, this Earth, were to explode right now, billion atom bombs or something blew it up to millions of atoms, would there be one particle lost? No. Where would it all go? It'll be all go into space. Can you postulate or think of anything that can be outside of space? Everything would be there in space, and different, wouldn't be that, we couldn't call it an Earth again, but it would be there, and it was all its particles or protons or nothing. Nothing would be lost.
Jane,
And out of such space, other things would form, continually change.
Jane added the comment, it's like in Eagle's song, we can check out, but we can never leave. And Padma says, I asked Bob about death after being with my grandpa when he passed, and the answer he gave them really helped. It is true. Yeah, it was just... Yeah, that's great.
Yes, every particle would still be there. You couldn't call it, like when this cat was saying, when this body rots. You can't call it a body again, but microbes live in it.
Yeah.
You don't get life out of it. And the life of those microbes or whatever, disintegration starts, it just starts to fall apart and disintegrate, but integration stops, it starts again. And out of life, more life continually comes. Like the ocean, ever changing, but never changing.
Yeah.
And you are that essence. Know that for certain. That though you're appearing as this body, particular body right now, it was 9 months when you were in the womb, when you didn't know anything about that body, and before that you were the essence of the food, your father and your mother, and where and your grandparents and all that, where have they disappeared to now? You see.
Yeah, I just love what you just said, that this is so significant. Before, you were the essence of the food of your father and mother. You were the essence of the food and the prana that they breathed. Isn't that amazing? I mean, of course, we won't be consciously identifying as it because the essence of food doesn't have a brain to have the conceptual image of the world and create any relationship. But it is significant. Thank you.
How long has it been going?
40 minutes. 40 minutes.
That's about enough, isn't it? If they get some questions or something, I might stir something up again. But
yes, we get one from Heyman. Birth and death are subjected to form and appearance, and it is necessary for the ability of their transition.
Yeah. Nothing static, it's got a transition.
And then Bob, I remember he gave the example once of the pine cone and the trees. Imagine the possibility of this one pine cone to populate the whole, not the populate, but to just forested the whole planet with the trees. If there was no death, what would have happened? After even one generation, there would be no enough space, not enough soil and anything for those trees, not even the CO2 for those trees to keep going. So the beginning, it implies the necessity of the end. The coming into existence implies the necessity to coming out of the existence, so the new forms can play out. It's inevitable. If there would be no death, there would be no life. I mean, if there would be no emptiness, there would be no form. If there would be no annihilation of the form, there wouldn't be a creation of the form. This is a nice comment from Graham. There is no you, and yet you are all that is. Yeah.
It's all the one essence.
Yes.
Divides and fashions, shapes and forms as me, you, this, that, how, why, when, where.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Recognise its simplicity and keep it as that. You are the absolute. Can you be anything separate? You, I suppose as you was just said, can that you be anything other than absolute? Though it appears and seems to be separate. Phenomenal manifestation. The definition of phenomena, that which appears or seems to be. So it seems to be so, and all this, as they say, is like the dream. It's all appearing. But in its essence it's real, in the way it patterns, shapes and forms, is appearance.
Beautiful. Yeah, Ram is saying, you've smashed it again, Bob. Love you always.
Who's that?
Ram.
Ah.
And also Tony is added another line from Eagles. Your prison is walking through this world all alone. That's her favorite line. And Heyman says, in fact, I never suffered.
That's right. Suffering is just a mental concept.
Yeah.
Seems very real, very solid, very painful. But what is it? A sensation. We put the label on suffering. We've learnt that word. We put the sensation, this one's fear, this one's anger, this one's love. They're all sensations, thought, feeling and emotion. 3 aspects of the one.
Yes.
Just like steam, water and ice, the 3 aspects of H2O.
Sally is saying, the belief of me comes back to me when my personality bumps against my partner's personality.
Don't claim the personality.
Yeah.
So if you see the partner as that essence and you see yourself as that essence, what's happened to the personalities? The person is not the real.
Yes. Also, if you see, Sally, how the belief of me comes back, who is aware of that belief coming back? You know, it's almost as if you are witnessing the belief energy flowing into and making something real. So if you can stay as the witness, seeing how the conflict appear and the identification goes with it straight away, in the moment the clarity will be lost. But the moment you wake up, you will see how it happened. And the more of the recognition of how mechanically it happens, the more possibility that the next time is not going to happen at all, or it will be that element of recognition will be there in the background.
You've got the idea that the persona is there, the mask, which we say, I am, and all the concepts we put on it to our own, what we believe, I'm Bob, the Australian, the good fella, that's all the concepts I put upon myself, or I'm not so good, or I'm unhappy, or I'm fearful of having a bad trot, people don't like me.
Yeah.
And then we investigate that, and who's it happening to? Well, it's happening to me. Well, but that fella says there's no me.
Yes.
I'll investigate and see if he's right or he's wrong. Is there such a thing as me? What's me? Isn't me the thought I am? And what's the thought I am? Isn't it that sense of presence, the knowing that you are, which we translate through the mind as the thought? If somebody wants to ask you, who are you? You say, I am. So I am is not the concept or the word, it's the sense of presence which we've translated. And you don't need the sense of presence with just I am, because it's nothing to people. So you put the imagined conceptual image, I'm Bob, I'm this, I'm so-and-so, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other.
Yeah, we have a lot of comments now. I start reading from the end. It is from Paula. After listening about chronic pain, it made me realize it is a normal thing for human body to decay. So why is the I in me so shocked, scared, when it is just a natural order?
Well,
the instinct is a natural order too. Being survival instinct, reacting to pain and being afraid of death is part of the natural order. Every animal is avoiding, running away from the prospective death. It's part of nature. That's how we are constructed.
The other thing too, you know, so what we're putting a sensation on it.
Yes.
The pain or the suffering. What happens if you looked at it fresh and new, as though you were seeing it for the first time? Yeah. So we put all these thought, feeling and emotion. Thought's there first, then the feeling comes up. A sad thought, but the sad feeling comes with it, then the emotion comes with it. The tears or the anger or the thing. What if you saw it fresh and new?
Yeah.
It's just a fresh and new. We've labelled it. See, we've labelled this one fear. How do you know? When we were little children, we first learned about it, we were told it was fear, or it was anger. It was suffering, it was guilt, it was remorse. We put all these labels on it. What happens if you see it as though you're seeing it for the first time? Fresh and new. Go into the pain. Go into the suffering. Really look at it. It's a hard thing to do because we're used to moving away from it straight away. Go right into it and test it out. And you might see it's something totally different to what we've believed in.
Yeah.
See, everything fresh and new as though it's happening for the first time. But we've got these old labels on it, and we immediately go into the old label and keep reinforcing it and realise it's being reinforced for years. We've gone into the same thing and reinforced it. So I never saw it fresh and new. But if you see it fresh and new, as though you're seeing it for the first time, you might notice something different about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is another comment. Why does our thinking naturally, without effort, go automatically to the mental concept of me, individuality?
Well, it's quite easy why it does, because your parents told you were this person, this me, then you went to school, and your school's told it, you know, and then your peers told it, and you keep reinforcing it yourself. Everybody around you is reinforcing it, and you're reinforcing it yourself constantly. Naturally, you go there until somebody says, hey, wait a minute, maybe you're not this. Yeah. And then that's when you might hear it. Something will turn you around and make you look elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But we've reinforced it. We're constantly reinforcing this belief, and the whole world is locked in that. 99.9% of the world is coming from that sense of self, personal self, not self. Not right. That's what we do. We take on the personal self, myself. But don't the scriptures tell you there's only one self? Yeah. One Atman, one self. And it's that self that is self-shining, it's self-aware, it's self-knowing, it's self-seeing, it's self-tasting, self-touching, self-smelling. It's the one self experiencing and expressing as everything. And you are that one self, not the personal self. But we've locked and believed and reinforced the personal self constantly. Mm. The person is not reality, it's a fiction.
Yes. Yes, we have so many more comments that I don't know where to start. One says happy birthday, Taz, so we're going to join and wish Taz happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes, Taz, is it?
Yes.
Good on you, Taz.
Yes, and another one says, here we have Heyman, me is what I am not suffering. For me is what I am not fixing. The suffering is also none of my damn business. So love all of it or none of it, and the rest will be done for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Mind is finite, says Jane. Jane, in answer to Dino, is thought pattern labeling system. But let's see the question of Dino. Why does one thinking naturally without effort? Okay, you just answered that. And it seems that can be very subtle I am, Adrian says, in answer to Paula about the natural order in pain. Heyman says, sensation or emotion from any gigantic trauma cannot leave a trace on I, simply because I don't have any objective quality. I'm witnessing of those, yet I am none of those. That's right. Jane says, all conflict arises between me and the other, alleged person, place or thing. See, there is no me. Then all conflict dissolves. Beautiful.
People, it's there, people are understanding and recognizing it.
Yes. Tas is saying, love you, Bob. I like this pointer that you brought to my attention from Krishnamurti. In seeing any fact, there is no me. There is either the me or the seeing. There can't be both. Me is non-seeing. The me cannot see, cannot be aware.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good one. Now, the question from Chip. One thing that has puzzled me. Consciousness arises from the absolute. Within consciousness, there is food. Why does Nisargadatta say the consciousness requires a food body when the food arises in consciousness? Nisargadatta's not there to answer it.
You can say it whichever way you like.
Yes.
But see, is there two?
That's right. And also, is there an order of things? Like, is there something that came before something else?
Yeah.
In the immediacy of the moment, in the timeless immediacy of the moment, everything arises and disappears simultaneously. There is not that there is first awareness, then consciousness, then body, or first body, then consciousness. All those ideas are based on the assumption that there is a linear time, which we can't show, prove, or experience. We can only experience time in the conceptual image. We cannot directly experience the time. The only direct experience is this moment. Like Bob was saying before, is there a past if you don't think about it? If you don't recall the past, there's no experience of past. And even if you do think about it, then that thought happens right now, in this moment. So we can't say that, well, I'm not answering for Nisargadatta, whatever he meant, but he was always saying the same thing. There's only one. So there is no food, consciousness, body, it's all one. Nothing needs to arise in anything because they all show up and go at the same time. And no time.
Says,
Tony loves Heyman's enthusiasm. Yeah, we all love that too.
yeah.
And Dino is replying to Tas, happy birthday. Tas, good time to be alive. Tony saying hi to Bill. More birthday wishes to Tas. Scriptures also tell us to meditate and perform karma yoga. And only the personal self can do those. So even scripture seems to reinforce it, says Michael. You want to comment?
Yeah. Well, as long as you recognise it, there's no personal doing it.
Mm. Yeah, some scriptures will also tell you to eat certain food or to pray to certain deities, and you know that there is no absolute truth in the concepts. The scriptures are only kind of attempting to point certain direction in a better or worse way, but there is the only thing that one could possibly rely on is the direct experience, is that so-called Sadguru, the inner guide. When the concepts are all gone, there is a knowing, and that knowing is always there, that non-conceptual awareness. The scriptures can be helpful, they can be used as pointers if they resonate, but they can also misguide, as everything. And there is another comment from Chip. From the Absolute, consciousness spontaneously arises. Within consciousness, appearances arise and subside. Among those appearances arising in consciousness is food. Nisargadatta says consciousness requires a food body. How can consciousness require food when consciousness arises as appearance in consciousness? I think I'm reading the same thing, sorry.
Yeah.
It's just so much of it. God says, me is not the doer. If it is, it will be consciousness. That which feels boredom by experiencing the time is also not I.
How's the time going?
We're not an hour yet. You want to sneak out? You had enough? Yeah, we have 40 people with us. Don't let them down.
Well, consciousness is existence. Utterly aware that it exists. Work that one out.
Yes.
Pure existence. And when it moves in, it's awareness. When it moves into consciousness, it's just as awareness of that existence.
Oh, I got a few more comments. MJ says, Bob, why did we create the current happening around us? To wake ourselves up and know we are not that? I'm enjoying being the observer at the present time.
Yeah. Well,
Question why is tricky.
Yeah.
Because it invites the story.
Yeah. The observer there is just observing.
Yes.
Just the same as there's seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, thinking. The functioning is going on. But as soon as we say, I see, I observe, I taste, I touch, you've related to the conceptual image, the persona. And that's I has become the subject. That's the split. And I am observing. But if you think you are the observer, you form the subject. There can't be an observer without observing. And there can't be the observed without observing. There can't be a thinker without the thinking. There can't be the thought without the thinking. The thinker and thought, observer and observing, seer and seen, they're all the one essence, seemingly divided conceptually. That's all.
Yeah, beautiful. Padma is saying, scriptures also say, do not get attached to the fruits of your labor. Perform the actions, karma yoga, without any attachment.
Yeah. But, when you recognise there's no one to attach or detach, that's what needs to happen.
Yes. Adrian is saying, from what I've seen through everyone, still seems to have the odd egoic reaction. If they were really honest, yeah, I can tell you, Adrian, just as a curiosity, I'm sure you've seen it many, many times with the cats and dogs. They also want attention for themselves. They also want survival for themselves, but they don't have concept of ego. So the natural urge to protect the body and to feed the body, to look after the body, if it happens in the same impulses that nature put out as a survival instinct, doesn't really need that label egoic. Egoic usually we more kind of associate with the narrative. and that narrative's like, you know, my country or my classroom or my family over somebody else's. That's a narrative that comes with a little bit of a different flavor. A natural instinct is never going to go. I mean, you know, Bob is feeding himself. He's not feeding the homeless guy under the bridge, because that's his functionality. That's how the body is equipped with the instincts to look after itself. And Heyman says, maybe Bob feels boredom by time. Ah, yes, probably about you wanting to go. Ram is asking, Bob, can you say something about suchness? That which exists but doesn't exist. Suchness.
Suchness.
That which exists but doesn't exist. That which is neither real nor unreal. Yeah, I love that one. You want to comment on it?
Such as it is.
As it is.
That's isness, another word for it.
Naming and claiming is the split. See it. Heyman, be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Ruminator. And Adrian's, okay, so can put it down to a survival instinct. Example for attention. It's not that easy, because it is, again, a billion of little elements coming into it. If the cats weren't that cute, you wouldn't be looking after them. If they weren't somehow giving you that kind of attention, they would have to find themselves a different way for providing for themselves. So it isn't that very simple. It can't be put to one cause, one effect. It's the whole dance that creates every scene. But it could be observed in nature, what we would anthropomorphize as egotistic or egoism. It could be observed, and that makes you kind of think whether we really are that different. Maybe we are the nature already, even though we imagine that there is some controller inside.
It all comes back to the belief in time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If there's no time, what begins, what ends, what starts, what finishes?
Yeah.
What, where, when, why, or how? It just is.
Yes. Yes, Taz is saying, I like what you just said, Kat, about the body being programmed to feed itself. It is not the personality. It is natural functioning. Yeah, same with trees and planets, whatever.
Natural function, just spontaneous. A vibration, a seemingly occurrence.
Yes. Heyman, he put the quote, which he says it was ruminator, and he says it was actually Rumi. Yeah. That was a nice quote somewhere, see if I can find it. Be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. Beautiful. I'm not sure if I read all of it. If I miss out any comments, please repeat.
Yeah. And it's beautiful, like people are commenting.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting listening, saying nothing, they're really getting stuck into it. And that energy surging through them will bring up the comments and bring up the answers to them.
Yes. Heyman says there is absolutely no duality in non-duality. He's quoting you. And Tony says, are there apples and pears or just food? That was about the comment from Chip about Nisargadatta. So he also answered to Tony. Yeah, it is beautiful. Yes, we do have these group meetings a lot of times at home when people would be intimidated by the presence of many others and nobody would ask questions. So perhaps that form, even though it feels a little bit weird to speak to the empty room, but it seems to have much more of a life in it. Thank you.
Yes, the people, questions are coming up and the answers are coming up for them too.
Yeah.
Some people are answering it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working.
Yes, so there is another one here. God Potter is asking if there is no one attached, so doership is attached to no one.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's no doership.
No, it's only seeming actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
No, do it. It's just a vibrating pattern. It vibrates into the seeming opposites. But nothing's done. No, deeds are done. What is it? Sights are seen, but there's no doer thereof. Somebody says that. No doer.
That's right. Yeah, it's the same way as there's a planet is rolling around the sun, and the sun is shining, and the wind is blowing, and nobody does that.
Yeah.
And yet it still happens.
Yeah.
Tony says, high 30s today.
What?
I don't get it.
Says what?
High 30s. 30s. I'm not quite sure. Ah, audience-wise. Yes, we went up to 40.
Tony?
Yes, Tony. Our Tony, yes. Yeah, she said she's noticing how many people is with us.
Oh, good. Which one?
Yeah. Julia was saying, if the room is quiet, it is your fault, Bob. Your talks quiet the mind.
Oh.
Megan says, my mind is racing from working long hours. I think you said the mind is a useful servant and a terrible master. How can I see through the belief in I when my thoughts are so active?
Just be aware of them coming and going. What's your next thought going to be? And to see that thought comes up spontaneously, realise it'll go spontaneously, if left alone. Let it rest and it's unfixated. What is it? I forget it.
Our unfixated awareness. Or in trust in singularity.
Singularity, yeah.
Yeah, God Potter is saying, the events happens, deeds are done, but there is no doer thereof, Buddha saying. Mitra says, good morning, beautiful people. Good morning.
Who said that?
Mitra. And then, Megan, I know you know that, but if the thoughts are so active, just, you say, when my thoughts are so active, how can I see through the eye? See that the thoughts are not really yours. That's an easy thing. It's just background noise. And then sometimes when the thoughts are active, there is no need for the functionality when it is on a full peak. Let's say you're helping someone, you're resolving a problem, or you're doing some constructive work. There's no need to even wonder if there is a seeing through eye or no seeing through eye, because eye is usually not interfering. There is no narrative. If the thoughts are completely engaged in life, that's just part of the appropriate use of the mind.
Let them be as they are anyway. They're going to move on. Every thought moves on. There's no thought stitched on.
Yeah.
No one-ended stick.
Yeah.
It's two ends. So if it's the good end or the bad end, it's still the same thing. And if you're not fixating or attaching to them so much, or being so concerned with them, well, not going to bother you. Let them go.
Yeah, Megan gave us a word when you were talking about the singularity, uncontrived singularity.
That's right.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, thank you.
We both demented. Tony says, if you are stuck to one spot on the couch all week, you can get sensitive to the different sensations triggered in that spot. Yeah, good observation. Absolutely. Yeah, it's in a more general way. It is like wherever the attention rests, wherever the mind focuses, the more details will reveal itself. There will be more creation going on. Whether you focus on building a financial industry, or whether you focus on creating a new medicine, or you focus on a love with your dear one, that will be the same effect. The more attention, that attention is the creative force of the universe. That is what brings up that all shades and forms and colors of everything. That's what Tony was saying about the sitting in one point in the sofa. Suddenly you can have so many sensations. Wherever the attention goes, energy flows and the creation happens. And also, it works the other way around. When the attention is withdrawn and it kind of rests in its source, the discreation happens. The creation is discontinued. And then this profound sense of presence or being shines forth because it's not distracted or obstructed by any of the creation.
See the thoughts coming and going, just as Kat was mentioning before about the earth rolling around the sun. When it's facing away from the sun, it's darkness. When it's facing toward the sun, it's light. And that's all that light is the absence of darkness. That's all that darkness is, the absence of light. They both move on, they both change.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to prefer?
Beautiful. Now Heyman is saying, having a busy and agitated mind or a quiet mind has zero influence with recognition act and see things as they are because awareness is indivisible.
Yeah, that's right. That's the two ends of the stick.
Yes.
Good one.
Adrian is saying, thoughts just come up. They are not mine. This is very relieving. There is no responsibility for them. Not that there is someone to take responsibility.
Good.
Yes. And Tony says, and you can notice judgments about that being a triggering spot in a positive or negative way. Yes, that judgment, that commentary, that liking, disliking is just another overlay of the happening. Then you can really see the narrative. Like when you say, how can you alter, modify or correct anything? You do it with your thinking, with your interpretation. So yes, that's the point where when the attention is still and the creation happens and the narrative kicks in, it's really an amazing spectacle to watch. And Ram is saying, Bob's looking great. Kat is obviously looking after him well. Yes, I want him forever. Yes, so we're doing it for an hour and 15 minutes now. So please, more questions, because I can see Bob wants his Easter lunch. And we have a lot of goodies. How to die in life as a dream. Greetings and thanks from Canary Islands, from Juan.
From who?
Juan. That's the name. How to die in life as a dream.
It says dying to the dream. Hmm?
Yes. Like, you know, when Jesus was saying, or St. Paul, I die daily, die to the sense of
Ah,
life.
yeah. Well, that's what you need to die to, yeah. That's sense of the persona, the mask.
Yes.
So St. Francis says, it's only by dying I can have eternal life. He's not talking about carcanet. He's talking to that sense of self. And eternal life, eternity is right in this moment. Yeah. It's not a billion light years or something else, you know. When does now begin? You try and grasp now, you say it's beginning right now, and even as I've said that, it's ended. And it's beginning again. So it's spontaneous. So there's no beginning, that's eternity. But if I think it's a billion light years long and it's going to has a beginning, anything that has a beginning will have an end at some time. But this moment is spontaneous, it's got no beginning and no end. It's constantly transient. Transient is imaging, transient, changing. And realise that that body we're sitting in right now is dying, changing right now. It's transient. There's thousands of cells, not just one or two, but hundreds of thousands of them dying right in this moment. And each cell is suffused with an intelligence. It knows what to do. A liver cell is not going to change into a heart cell, or a brain cell is not going to change into a liver cell. Yeah. Each cell is fresh and new, just the same as the sperm and the ovum were suffused with that intelligence. It knew what to do. And that's constantly gone and changed. So it's all dreamlike.
Yes.
Nothing solid or static. Have a look and see if you can find a static point anywhere. Or any self-nature to anything. See, we say this me, personal self. But where's the self-nature of the me? When you look at it and investigate, there's no self-nature at all.
Yes.
Myself. As soon as you say myself, you've made it a self belong to this conceptual image, me. How can it, when the me's a fiction?
Yes. Yes, God Potter says, it seems the desire or intention for liberation is the first step. Yes, it often happens this way, that it is first step, but it is not the prerequisite. There is no prerequisite. There is a possibility or potentiality for the awakening happening spontaneously, even as a cause of a brain damage. Who knows? I mean, there is no limitation on that.
Well, it's it is the absolute. Start from that fact that it is absolute. There is only the absolute. Nothing can be added to it, nothing can be taken away from it. If we start from any other point, which we do, we've taken on the belief we're this person. If you're starting from behind the 8 ball, because you've got to battle through that false allegation that you're this person, and then you think got to start searching to become the real or the total. But if it's absolute, it is absolute. What can you add to the absolute? Nothing whatsoever. Add the smallest smidge of anything onto it, it wouldn't be absolute. What can you take away from it? Not the slightest thing. Or otherwise they put it in the great perfection. And the Buddha stated the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. It's that awareness that's with you right now without any thoughts, concepts, ideas or images on it. Yeah. Drop the thoughts and you get a taste of it. Even if it's only for a seeming, I can't say time. There's times that there's no time.
Yes, maybe you want to comment to this one, because it's not happening that often anymore, but it used to happen a lot, that people used to bring you chocolates, and Ram says, Bob loves chocolates. So, do you really?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I was into the belief that they were good for you and they could be eaten. Oh, I don't.
No, there was a time. Where, just after Bob's first wife died, for 4 years, Bob literally didn't really have much more to eat than chocolates. So people were bringing chocolates, and he was eating chocolates. He didn't cook for himself. Now he's cooking. He's cooking very well, but he's cooking for me. For himself, he still wouldn't cook. So we had Bill. Thank you, Bill, for bringing him boiled eggs. And we had a neighbor occasionally bringing soup. And once every few months, one of his relatives would bring something. But that's it. He was eating chocolates because he didn't really have much more to eat. That's why he was malnourished and fat. But not because he liked them. Because people like Bob, and people love Bob, and people wanted to express gratitude, they were bringing chocolates. There was few smart ones who would bring occasionally a piece of bread or boiled eggs like Bill, but others just assumed that the only way to express love was by chocolates. But I do have chocolate. I did bake a cheap chocolate cookies with no sugar and no gluten and no nasties, homemade, very, very sweet, of natural fruits. So we do have chocolate.
They don't love Bob. Nobody loves Bob. They love the essence, for whatever the essence is, that it can be recognised. What they recognise from their own natural recognition, and relate to them what they know themselves, what it's related to, and that's what they relate to in anybody else when they start to resonate with this stuff.
Yes. Mm.
No, you relate to the pattern, shape and form. The pattern, shape and form might be just a nice way of looking at things. Mm-hmm. Like a piece of fruit will be a nice way. It might make you want to eat it. You might like it, but it's the life essence that's in the fruit.
Yes.
It's in the taste and the form.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the person, they're the person.
Yes, so...
When the two seemingly persons come together and love each other, again, if it's true love, it's the natural resonance of the essence that's in them.
That's right. So Jane says, see, there is no me dreaming. And Rashtra says, role of mantra repetition. The dreaming of the dreaming, says Jane. Heyman, all your attempts to reach me are in reality my attempts to reach you. This is from Rumi. And Pranesh, all is one. Why do we even need suffering to point us back to oneness?
Well, try and get there without it. Would you naturally go to that? We're taken with all the appearance of things and the joys that are in them.
And Chris says, no such thing as evolution in the spontaneous world, only idea, I guess. Yeah, evolution's pretty spontaneous.
Yeah.
Tony Carson, I've been noticing how noticing my thoughts creep off into the future have been crushing fear to make steps, if they are not so-called perfect steps. Without that future thought arising, the step happens without forethought. Exactly.
Effortless functioning.
Exactly, yes. Life without narrative. Who or what is deconstructing beliefs and habits? Gut Potter. Who is it?
They're just spontaneously happening. There is no who. Unless you seemingly believe in a who.
Yes.
Then you need to question and say, who am I? That's what Ramana asked, who am I? Ask yourself the question, who am I? And when you look at that, what is it? What is who am I? Who am I is a question.
Yeah.
And then, well, who's the questioner? Well, the questioner must be the question. So if the questioner is the question, you found out who am I, they've cancelled each other out.
Yeah.
There's no question and there's no questioner. Just what is.
Also, I'd add about there is no action of deconstructing. It is just seeing through, and seeing is non-action, really. I mean, seeing is more kind of relaxing out of the belief. So if there is certain belief, it doesn't really need deconstructing. Sometimes it feels like it is deconstructing, as it is really investigating and contemplating, and it seems like there is an effort in it. But really, the whole effort is to relax out of the belief, and then the belief is just naturally seen through and is dropping. And that action is the non-action, really. Just like seeing happens spontaneously is not an effort. Looking might be an effort, but the seeing is not. But even an seeming attempt or seeming effort of focusing attention somewhere, that attention is being focused according to the thoughts that come up spontaneously. So it is all the same life. Henya from Chicago says hi and sends love.
Who?
Henya.
Ah.
This is singular, immediate, there isn't anything else. That's Heyman.
Yeah.
So God is asking that deconstruction is happening only without causes and effects. That happening, everything is just happening without causes and effects. Yeah, one could say it happens without a singular causes, because one could say the whole universe is a cause for every moment to appear the way it does. It contributes, but there is no singular cause. That's why we call it causeless.
Uncaused joy, spontaneous joyousness comes out. Spontaneous sense of well-being.
Yes.
Finished?
We made it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was very beautiful. Remember, there's many different answers to questions, and each one is unique in its expression.
Just go with which one resonates, hit your heart.
Yes.
That's take you home.
Yeah. And each one in the resonance of it will be enlightening.
Yes. And Julia says she loves us both, and we love you too. Julia loves us both, and we love Julia. We love, yes.
Hi, Julia.
Yes, each one would be enlightening, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And all enlightenment is discarding the false.
That's right.
And sitting with what we recognise as the truth. Thank you.
Yes, so we get a lot of thank you, and thank you everyone. Have a good meal.